Welcome to the Social Distancing Podcast. I will be having chats with everyday people as they find their way through the next few months, physically distancing ourselves from each other while attempting to stay socially connected. The discussions will detail their day-to-day life, the methods they are using to keep in touch with their friends and families, any realizations and stories, and what tips and tricks they have for everyone else. This episode was recorded on the 27th of March 2020. Today, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has announced that he has tested positive for the coronavirus and is self-isolating. On this episode, I'll be talking to Chris. He is a frontline NHS worker. We'll be discussing the clap that went around the UK at 8 p.m. last night, why hand washing is far better than using hand sanitiser, and a few of the nerdy things that we cannot currently do because of the situation. Hello and welcome to the Social Distancing Podcast. Today I'm joined by Chris. Chris, are you well?
Quite well, thank you, considering.
What's your current living situation and are you currently working?
Yeah, I live with my partner and my cat. My partner, fortunately, can work from home in this environment, so she's been under isolation here. I work in the NHS. I'm an emergency medical technician. So I've been working as abnormal. It's been quite stressful and chaotic, very mentally taxing at the moment as well as physically. But I also recognise the fact that I'm able to go to work and talk to different people. It's quite liberating when I come home and I see that my partner has just been locked away and she's only been able to talk about work remotely. I've been able to go and talk to different people.
So with your job, you've been able to get out and about, but you also do offer almost unique perspective on this as you're a frontline health worker, trying to deal with the issues and the surrounding problems. You say working abnormally. I guess the busyness is somewhat astounding right now.
Yes, it is. It's really changed the way we do things. Pathways that we would have had for poorly people before. Say, for example, we went to someone with presenting with chest pains. They usually suffer with shortness of breath, which we have to take as a symptom, and we have to take them to a specialised ward. There's a lot of people that we don't want to take to hospital that we would normally take without thinking about, and we try to get them treated at home at the moment. It's very every day the bars are changing and new guidance comes in, so very mentally taxing at the moment.
Have you actually come across somebody who's actually had the coronavirus, COVID-19?
At the moment, it's the exception rather than the rule that we are going. Say I go to 6 jobs in a day, 5 of those will be query cases where we're having to wear full protective PPE to examine. I've come across maybe a handful of people that I've come across 1 or 2 confirmed cases, and I've come across people that I'm pretty sure are going to get confirmed once they've been examined in hospital. Seeing a lot of pneumonia at the moment, but a lot of our job at the time at the moment is being taken up with people who are panicking. They think that they're displaying symptoms and they quite probably have it, but 999 is not the number to call. We're having to explain to a lot of people that we don't test at home. We just get people to self-isolate and look after themselves best they can. Once they start preventing, if at all, start showing life-threatening issues such as extreme shortness of breath, chest pain, that's when 999 comes in.
You spoke in there about the PPE that you're wearing. The photo that you sent me earlier this week of the mask on. In normal times, I'd be terrified if you turned up with that on. But of course, I see it's something that's clearly needed at this point.
Oh, absolutely. It takes us a good 5 minutes to get kitted up in our PPE to go and see someone. At that time, we usually parked up outside of someone's house, and they've come outside to make sure we're okay. And we're going, stay inside. We'll be with you in a minute.
You're living with a partner and a cat. How is the cat dealing with this? Are you finding that the cat's a bit confused?
Very, very confused. My partner she'd worked several days from home before this happened. Now it's all the time. So she was okay with that. But seeing both of us all day long. So on my days off is quite bewildering for her. She's getting probably more attention than she craves. um, she's getting very involved with all of our activities. I am trying to figure out whether I can train her to go to the shops for us, but I don't think that's going to happen.
If only we could have animals that would go and do the shopping, especially if you've seen some of those queues for some of the supermarkets so far. I did see a photo from our local superstore today, and the queuing seems to be almost around the block. But everybody giving everybody the good 2 meters or 6 feet away from each other.
Being a worker for the NHS, it's been phenomenal the support we're getting from the supermarkets. We use Morrison's frequently, and they've knocked it out of the park. They really have. They're letting us in an hour early most days. They know to have different days from us, giving us the opportunity to come an hour early, as they'll give the elderly a different day, so they're not mixing people who have been in contact with potential corona sufferers with the people who are the most at risk of being infected.
I'm going to go into a few more questions about other things that you're doing, maybe with your time off while we're dealing with this. So, looking at your entertainment, have you got anything that you're doing during your downtime? Anything that's particularly entertaining you, or something that's spending your time on?
Well, I'm definitely on board with the Disney Plus conspiracy theory. It seems very convenient, and it has been really good.
Again, the question was going to be coming later on in the pod, but man, that Disney Plus, it comes hard and fast, doesn't it? Everybody seems to have picked it up.
I've been saying it before I heard yourself and Ben. It's very very convenient for them, but the 7-day trial is a really good option for nearly everyone at the moment.
It's bizarre, really, the timing of it, but it does appear that a lot of people are picking it up. What's the first show or film that you're planning on watching, or have you been watching something already?
Well, I've already knocked out the first two episodes of The Mandalorian. They're really good. I finally watched Moana. I've been threatening to watch it for quite a long time. Yeah, phenomenal.
The Mandalorian is actually something I don't know a great deal about myself. I believe, is that Star Wars? I'm showing myself here and my lack of contact with people at times.
Yeah, no worries. No, it's a Star Wars standalone series, kind of set. I think it's set after or during the Luke period. So it's interesting to see. Well, no, it's after that. It's after the fall of the Empire. So it's an interesting period.
And is it something, as somebody who's not particularly a Star Wars fan, is it something you would suggest for me to watch?
Oh, I think so. Definitely. It's if you're not interested in the Star Wars aspect, you can always get interested in it being the Baby Yoda show, who has taken the world by storm.
Of course, I've seen the photos and memes of Baby Yoda. So maybe I'll have to give it a little look. Exercising is a key point of our weekly routine, really, and something that we can't do so much anymore. Now, have you found an exercise routine or something that fits in with your situation?
Well, my job's moderately physical anyway, so I've kind of carried on as normal in that regard. I had been threatening to join the gym for quite some time, and it happened to coincide with us not being allowed to go to the gym. So, going to bring down an exercise bike we've got gathering dust in the loft, and try to make use of that, I think.
Chris, I know you're in a bit of a unique situation with keeping contact with friends and family. It's actually something that you're sort of well tested and well tried out in this situation. If you want to let me know about your current situation and how you're keeping in contact with friends and family, that'd be great.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I've this whole gathering together on Skype from house to house has been something I've been accustomed to quite well. My family, my mum and dad and my two brothers actually emigrated out to New Zealand around about 11 years ago now. So it's been our chief form of contact for quite some time. But I will say that I've done the rounds with my family a lot more over the last couple of days. Actually managed to get a visit in from my parents, a physical visit. They just went out back to New Zealand before the lockdown started and got serious.
So they're back in New Zealand now. Are they locked down over in New Zealand, or are they got free movement at the minute?
No, they've been locked down now. As soon as the COVID-19 became community driven, their prime minister locked down the entire country. So they're there where we are quite earlier on. Actually, it's a bit easier to do with a country with a much smaller population. But yeah, my brothers are both self-isolating as much as they can in the city of Wellington, and my parents are self-isolating in Paparumu, a small village outside of.
Keeping in contact with your friends, have you got any little groups going, any video chats that you've been doing or anything?
Well, I've been thinking a lot lately of friends that are self-isolating on their own. As my perspective is that if this goes on for quite some time, I think the next epidemic we're going to get is quite a mental health epidemic. I think a lot of people should be thinking of their friends that are on their own at the moment and trying to involve them in whatever they're doing. I've seen groups doing get-togethers over Skype with groups of friends as they would, and then involving the odd friend that's on their own, and they're getting a lot of appreciation out of that.
Yeah, it's good to see that people are involving others around, especially if there are some solo people out there that solo isolating. Just a shout out from me to anybody listening. If you know somebody who is solo isolating, just reach out to them. Just send them a message, something small. Everything okay? Question mark. That's all it needs to be.
Absolutely, as it goes on, I think that's going to be one of the biggest concerns.
Yeah, it still feels a little bit to me. I mean, it's difficult for me because this is only sort of day 3 of isolation, or I should say day 4 of isolation, I believe, for myself now. And I'm not feeling separated from people quite yet. I think I've been able to keep myself busy, and it feels like more of an adventure, which seems bizarre in the situation that we're facing.
Yeah, it's good. It's positive thinking. It's trying to spin something that's been forced upon us, and trying to make something constructive out of it, something positive. A lot of people are developing, as Ben said, skills that they didn't have the time to develop before. So try to focus on any positives you can take out of the current situation.
With the lockdown of people currently, there's been a lot of events that have been cancelled. Now, is there anything that's affected you directly? Anything that's cancelled that you had tickets for, or were planning to go to, or were going to be watching on the TV?
Well, we had tickets for Nick Offerman next month, the American comedian. We got into through Parks and Recreation. Very much looking forward to that. They were actually for my partner's birthday, so we've had to cancel that. I've kept the shift swap I had in for the day, so we can celebrate as much as we can at home.
I'm going to add a little bit to this because Chris is my resident dungeon master for
Oh,
Dungeons and Dragons.
of course,
And
yeah.
of course, the social isolation or social distancing has caused us a little bit of a problem because we are currently unable to continue our campaign.
Well, we had to cancel. We had to put it on hold for my parents visiting for 3 weeks, and then the date that we put in for afterwards, we've had to cancel that, and I think it's cancelled for the foreseeable, really, unless we develop some kind of Skype format for it. But there's a few miniatures that I need to throw some paint on, so I've got plenty of time to do that and develop the world more. So yeah, that's it, again, it's focusing on positives that you can spend time on, develop new skills, and those little jobs that you've been putting off within the house, you can get on top of them.
A welcome distraction. And another thing that I'm going to add to this, an event that has been cancelled that may affect you, me more than yourself, but you were due to host it this year, and that's our annual Eurovision watching party.
Oh no, absolutely devastated. I've not been able to really. I think I've kind of put that to the back of my mind, but yeah, I was really looking forward to that. But it's the global connection that we get from Eurovision. I think if there's anything positive we can take from this horrible virus, is the fact that every country is having to take measures. Every country is going through this and having to do the same things. I just hope if anything positive comes, it's that sense of global identity that we are one race, which Eurovision would have done. So,
Well, it's that, and it gives us all a bit of fun.
yes, absolutely.
Due to the panic buying early on, people were outstripping the supply of essentials. Was there anything that you're currently struggling to find? And what's the current toilet roll situation looking like?
Well, again, with the special NHS hour, we're able to get to the shops a little bit earlier, and there are things that are quite evidently missing that they can't get hold of, that we genuinely have shortages in. But a lot of the shortages have been driven up by people just taking way more than they actually need. Toilet paper is not so much of a problem. We're having to break into some of the emergency rolls soon, some of the cheap home brands that I'm not looking forward to.
Any other essentials that you're running short on, or is everything fine for you at the moment?
At the moment, as there's only two of us here, it's quite a different situation, as I can imagine families are having to struggle to fill the food groups that they used to, whereas for us it's not so bad. I'm able to again take it as an opportunity to try new things. If something I'd normally buy is missing off the shelf, I'll try and find some kind of substitute, and that can be a bit fun, a bit adventurous, and sometimes horrific.
Can make things interesting. I couldn't find any bread the other day, so I ended up with wraps. So my fry up was put into a wrap the other morning. It was actually quite nice having bacon, eggs, and cheese all in a wrap. It's something different.
Oh yeah, wraps is something I've moved on to for a while now. It's you can be quite creative, experimental, and quite successful.
So here's a bit of a chance. I'm just going to open up the floor to yourself. Just want you to see if there's anything you want to discuss or anything you've seen, thought, or done in recent weeks.
Well, definitely from my perspective, working for the NHS, I really appreciated the support we got last night with the clapping. It was I opened my window speculatively to see if I could hear anything, and our street erupted, and I could hear them for quite some time. I don't mind saying it was quite emotional for me. Also, I'd like to mention again from a perspective that one of the things it actually came to my mind when you were mentioning the shortages. One of the things that's quite scared me in this situation is the fact that everyone seemed to go out and panic buy hand sanitizer, the alcohol gel. I'm quite worried that people are using that instead of washing their hands. It's second best. I've been trying to educate a lot of people in, if you're passing a sink, wash your hands with soap. Soap breaks down the lipid layers that protect viruses, so you can kill it effectively, whereas alcohol gel, nowhere near as effective. I think a lot of people have been foregoing, thinking that they can use this little medical looking squirt and rub their hands and it's better. It's definitely not. Hand washing's king.
Great advice there. So I hope that our listeners can give that a bit of thought. Finally, anything that you're looking forward to once all of this has passed?
Well, I'm hoping that once this has passed, we can get back on track with our D&D sessions that we're having. We're going on quite some adventures, and the creativity of that is something that I've been really enjoying. We're looking forward to having social gatherings again. It's something that I've been sorely missing. It's been nice to listen to this podcast itself, hearing your voice and people that I'd normally be hanging around with, like Ben, and that's sorely missing. I'm able to socialise with co-workers, but the friends I've known for years are kind of definitely out of sight at the moment. So it's, looking forward to that.
Any final thoughts that you'd like to get over to anybody, Chris?
Yeah, well, just simply that I'd just like to reiterate the current situation with 999, being as I work with on the ambulances, is that a lot of people are calling us because they think that we're going to be able to test them when they're showing symptoms, moderate symptoms, which are manageable at home. 50% of the work that I've been doing recently has been just allaying people's fears and saying, all your observations are absolutely fine. You can need to stay at home, self-isolate, and treat the fever with paracetamol. Call us if a life-threatening change occurs. The other 50% of my time seems to be taken up with people who really are in life-threatening situations, pneumonias that have been developing as the symptoms have taken hold on people who are quite susceptible and vulnerable. So if we could bring down that first 50%, we'd have more time to deal with the second 50%. The thing that you need to be doing if you're worried that you're displaying symptoms is call 111. 111 will triage you, and they'll get you a call back from a clinician who talk through your symptoms and again ascertain whether you need any hospitalization. But we, as the ambulance service, we cannot test for COVID-19. It's not something we offer, and it's not something we do. If we come to you and you insist on going to hospital, you might not have COVID-19, you're just displaying symptoms of something else, and you're rubbing shoulders with people who probably do have it. So that's going to increase the spread. Self-isolation, stay at home, 111 if you're worried, 999 if you really can't cope. That's chest pains, that's severe shortness of breath, and any situation where you feel that you just lost control of yourself.
Thank you for relaying that message to us, Chris. I think people do panic in these stages, and I think it's time for people to just realise how difficult it is for other people that need that help to get it if people are panicking unnecessarily.
Yeah, it's always going to be a degree of panic. That's completely understandable, and we're never judgmental when we go to people, but it's a desperate plea to help us concentrate on the people who really do need us at the moment.
Chris, thank you for being with me today. Thanks for chatting with me. It's been great to hear your voice and have you discuss your current situation in light of the outbreak of the coronavirus or COVID-19. On behalf of myself and the listeners, keep doing the great work that you are doing. It is working out there. I will continue to do my part by sitting here and implore other people that have been told to stay at home to stay at home. Thank you for being here today, Chris.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Again, lovely to hear your voice and socialise with you in this form. Yeah, thanks for letting me voice my concerns as well. And stay safe, everybody. Stay inside if you can, and take care if you can't.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast. If you'd like to keep up with what's happening, then follow us on Twitter at TheSDpod. Any questions you have for the podcast, please send these to TheSDpod@gmail.com. Take care.